and just playing the devil's advocate here. I mean, when we were active in the pediatric community, we would run into families all the time that would have epileptic children that would be diagnosed with other mental health issues as a direct result of their epilepsy or some other debilitating disease. And to say that a child would have to have a seizure as opposed to, or not a child as much as, I guess, an adult at that point, if they're in mental health court, more than likely, but to say that they would have to, experience a seizure because the mental health court says that it might exacerbate some other condition that they have is ridiculous. That's not a decision for them to make. That's their doctor's decision.
Here's a question, though. Just playing devil's advocate. Jamie, where are you? Quiet. I want to hear what you're Jamie, I want to ask you this question and see, because a lot of this is anecdotal. Like, what do we know from people that have had, different varieties of psychiatric conditions, severe or whatever, that are can be debilitating. But here's the thing: if there's I don't know. I could, listen. If someone's getting certified for leg pain, and they got a back pain, Jim, and they have
what's wrong with that?
And they have name some like some personality, multiple personalities or something like that. Let's say, okay.
Okay. And they're mentally, they have some mental.
But something that can make them be dangerous. Let's say, okay.
Yeah.
And they go in to get their card for back pain, and at no point in time is the psychiatric analysis considered, because it's not, right?
That sounds to me like a failure of the medical system, and still would not warrant the court intervening.
But, let me ask you this. What if the scenario is that a person who has done something extreme and they happen to find cannabis in their blood, whereby they would normally, and it was all based upon their psychiatric condition, right? So they're running like a...
How would that be any different from someone getting prescribed some other medication that might exacerbate a mental health issue? And there are plenty, by the way. Cannabis is not alone in that class. I'll tell you what. You go back to the doctor. Say, Doc.
No, I know that.
You're fucked up.
I know that, but you know what I'm saying? But I mean, I think I'm asking the question the wrong way. What I'm really getting at is, what is the, there's not a lot of, we don't talk about or think about the impact that cannabis may have on someone who's got a predisposed psychiatric condition, even though they may be using it for another reason. We don't know. It's not even it's not really thought about. It's not part of the doctor. I'm saying it's good, bad, or otherwise.
But that should be part of the oversight.
Okay, well, it's not. I'm saying it's not, and it's probably not in the questionnaires for doctors and whatnot.
No, it is not. But yeah, that being said, is this?
And I'm not saying it should be
an enormous problem.
I want to be clear.
Do we hear about
no,
people?
It's not. It's not. And I'm not even saying it should be a condition or something that would preclude somebody. You know what I mean?
This is a problem.
Listen, I am only bringing listen, this whole premise, these are not my beliefs. We started the premise, are we giving any weight at all to the suggestion that
I know.
There's some evidence, some people say there's some predisposition for psychiatry.
But again, whose decision is that to make?
On the other side of things, in Florida, they're putting some legislation forward that says that they're adding conditions, mental health conditions, to the list. For instance, bipolar disorder or opioid use disorder. Those are things that they're adding to.
Who is?
But they're also
Florida?
going to ask that the doctors ask about mental health. But you're right. I think there's a disconnect because oftentimes the doctor that's certifying you is not necessarily the doctor that sees you for everything else. So the patient really tells you or provides you the records that they want you to see,
Exactly.
So another thing is because it's a recommendation and they're not really doing anything else in that regard, the patient is really kind of left to their own devices, especially with cannabis. So maybe that person doesn't even know they have a pre-existing, maybe that person doesn't know. They're just like, okay, I'm just going to smoke this joint, and then boom, something happens, you know? But I don't think that it should necessarily exclude, but I do think that it is something that the doctors or the mental health professionals really should be taking on a case by case very seriously.
I agree. And I'm texting you while we're talking because I want to. I think one of the things that Jamie, where are you? Did he drop off?
No.
Where is he?
He's right here.
Jamie, I'm curious. I didn't want to be misinterpreted, but it's a topic that what if any feedback have you gotten from any patients, or what is your thoughts? Do you give any credence to the idea that cannabis can impact some way, whether it's a trigger or helps facilitate someone's exasperating their predisposition to some psychosis of some kind?
No, that's been said, and some people have described, moving into those situations, associated with using cannabis. So I guess maybe. I don't know how well it's been established. I'm not familiar with it. I'm not,
right. And sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just not aware of something that is so conclusive that it should be discussed as.
And I think it's not even stated in a way that it says there's a correlation. It's more that there's a pattern of
there is
of this taking place. They're not even connecting it, and they're not even saying that the cannabis is what causes.
No, they're definitely not saying that. They're saying it's all every single.
But it's also got a little bit of hyper devil's lettuce in there. Like, you never know. Don't try it. You could be the one.
I mean,
you know what I mean?
That's true.
One lick and you're fucking stuck.
That's why it's so terrible to even talk about it like that.
I know.
Because you don't want the whole bad side of it and those reefer madness folks to gain some momentum.
I mean,
and I think it's just something that you have to be aware of.
Yep.
In some cases, it's going to, affect. Because it's a plant, because it affects people differently, we don't, we haven't studied it to the degree, right? We know that nobody's died, but...
I'll tell you this. If someone has not identified this by the age of 21, technically speaking, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it would have manifested itself in some way, right? Like, it shouldn't be 21 and then you get the trigger.
I mean, maybe.
Yeah,
But it's 18 to 21 is the area that they think, like 17, 18 to 21. Which means that no one's advocating that use at that age. I mean, they have been. I'm saying no one's advocating for it. The law is the law. However, unless it's for medical purposes, right? Because then they need a card and a doctor to be supervised, and we'd have that. But right. I'm saying that's one of the ways that's resolved without much division of within the concepts that we're working here, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if we knew that it was really a younger age that this onset arises out of, right? As opposed to 21. I mean,
I don't think one has anything to do with the other. It's, I know people that, have certain conditions that when they consume cannabis, it's not conducive to helping them, and they just choose not to. But like Amanda said, I mean, it's all about how the plant affects you personally. And that could very well be that, one person with the condition, it doesn't impact in a positive way, but another with the exact same condition because of whatever set of, biological circumstances they happen to possess, that it affects them entirely differently, which is why it needs to go back to the patient and the doctor, which is always wrong.
Well said, Jimmy.
Okay. All right. So I was going to say this on the final point. The worst part of all this is that no matter which of these courts is being, whatever the direction that this goes, whatever the outcome of this bill is, and the idea that individuals who are using cannabis are somehow now going to be in jeopardy of being punished. The worst part of it is this, that all these programs test your urine to determine if you are using marijuana, your medical marijuana. And as we began the show with this idea that, what is going to be in the urine? It's going to be a metabolite, carboxy COH11, or what? Not delta 9. That's gone through your liver or your bladder, and it's coming out a completely different molecule. Now, the ability to discern what that molecule is, a carboxy, and where it came from, is what they would need to show in order to actually penalize you. In other words,
but doesn't that carboxy prove an illicit substance?
No, because they sell gummies and they sell food products and they sell hemp hearts. And in order to be within that definition, it's cannabis sativa L, and there's trace amounts of THC. And trace amounts of THC that get into your digestive system are going to be variables that cannot be discerned from the levels that come out of from your lungs and smoking a joint. See what I'm saying? And when that gets down through and is metabolized into your urine, and they look at your urine, whatever those numbers are, they can't tell you if it came from marijuana or from your legal use of hemp. Okay? Now, so if someone was using CBD, for example, let's say they're a runner, and their treatment is CBD lotions and gummies to treat themselves, and they don't use opioids, and they're on probation, and they're in drug court or whatever, VA court, and they test them. They're going to test them by way of urine.
Yeah.
And they're going to say you're using marijuana. Firstly, the argument is you can't punish me, but you can't punish me because that's not prohibited. Right?
Yeah. Because it's not marijuana. Right.
The point is, unless you tell them it's marijuana, they don't know where it came from and what you're ingesting.
But so many people do.
Well, it's easier. Which is it easier to get, hemp or marijuana?
Well, no,
Where's there more of it around?
I was reiterating your advice that unless you tell them, they don't know.
Right.
Because people they tell them, and then they know. And then, as the old adage goes, you're fucked.
It's true. And for all purposes, Jim, you remind me of a very, very important tip, which I'm prepared to give right now. This next tip is sponsored by Komorn Law, 1-248-357-2550 for all your legal needs, especially traffic encounters. To it, if you are interacting with a law enforcement officer, remember you do not have to participate in the gathering of evidence that they are going to request of you if they intend to investigate you for some kind of driving offense. This goes for alcohol and also for investigations regarding quote-unquote controlled substances. The easiest way to remember this tip is to remember the following. Don't talk, don't walk, and don't spit. If you remember those three things and blame it on your lawyer. My lawyer told me I'm not allowed to talk, I'm not allowed to walk, I'm not allowed to spit. So you're not going to answer any questions, where you've been coming from. If it gets to that point, how much did you have to drink, how much you have to smoke, where's the marijuana. My lawyer told me I'm not allowed to answer any questions. Am I under arrest, officer? Am I free to leave? Am I being detained? Am I free to leave? Get out of the car. Okay. Go right out of the car. A debate could take place here. Either way, they're going to drag you out of the car once that happens.
They're going to fool you into thinking that if you cooperate with them, things are going to be better.
I'm suggesting this. If they order you out of the car,
and it's not,
whether you have to get out or not, they're going to get you out.
You're getting out.
And they're going to charge you with some crimes because of it. So once you're out of the car, this is the most important point of this whole story, which is don't talk to them. If they tell you cooperate and will be good to you, you say, well, my lawyer told me, blame it on the lawyer. Don't talk.
Don't talk.
When they say we need you to do some sobriety tests.
No.
Oh, so now you're going to act like a lawyer, eh?
My lawyer
you
told
think
me
that's smart? You think you're going to talk back to us and refuse what we're telling you to do? Your lawyer's not here right now. That can be intimidating for people.
And Steve,
that occurs.
You make a good point because it is then and there that people will buckle. You said it in a firm way. I was actually going to change my advice. I said, no, tell them what they want. No. But no, you're right. It is intimidating. But remember, these are the reasons why you're not doing it. It'll make a little bit more sense here. If they've gotten you out of the car, it's likely they want to arrest you. That's number one, okay? So if they get you out of the car, it means they are getting into it and they're looking for something to get you. Now,
They're getting you out of the car. There's a good chance that you're probably getting arrested for something.
there you go.
So don't help them out any further with their investigation.
At that moment when they get you out of the car, they may be thinking that they're going to arrest you. They just want to be sure, okay?
Could be, yeah.
They may have already made up their mind. They just need you to step into one pile of poo. That's it, just one. So they're going to say, here, it's 11 o'clock at night. It's snowing out. We're going to come over to the side of the road. There's cars flying by at 75 miles per hour.
You're going to walk the line.
And you're going to walk this line, okay? 8, 9 steps this way, pivot, come back, you understand? Don't look at your feet. Keep your hands to your side. Okay, now we're going to
stand on 1 foot.
We're going to stand on 1 foot, and you got to keep your hands on your side. Now, first of all,
You got to quack like a duck.
First of all, nobody's ever asked you to perform these tests before. The idea that you think you're going to be able to successfully perform them at 11 o'clock at night when it's snowing on the side of a road is laughable. We don't know.
Not even when you're sober.
We don't know who the specimen is that can do these things, but it's probably not you. It may make sense if they made you do these things before you got your driver's license.
Yeah.
But the idea that without any practice, you're going to have a test on this, your acrobatics and standing and walking and following, you know, half the battle is this, that there's a diverted attention concept where they're asking you to do things and talking to you at the same time, trying to divert your attention, see how you react to it. Mm-hmm. That's like saying, I'm subjective, and I'm going to evaluate all the things I'm saying to you, you know, and how you react. The point being is that...
It's called police science for a reason.
Police science, there you go. And that intimidation game is awesome, you know?
Oh,
It's because they want to trust you. But here's the reality.
Oh, you think you're a lawyer now, eh?
Here's the reality. Let me tell you something. Number one, to make this kind of fair is this.
It's good.
If you know what we're talking about here, and I want to be specific. I'm talking about the field sobriety test or testing outside of the car. You're not going to participate. You're not going to spit into any containers or let them take saliva. Mm-hmm. You're not going to talk to them about anything that you've been doing, consumption, whatever.
Well, so you're not going to cooperate with me. I think I might be able to add an R&O charge to you there, buddy.
Yeah.
With all due respect, officer, I know the law in this regard. I have to give you my driver's license, which I did.
Oh,
proof of
the
insurance.
lawyer's back. Oh, I forgot you're a lawyer, son.
Am I free to leave?
There
So
you go.
listen.
Am I free to go?
Listen,
Steve?
if the officer's arguing with you, it's likely that one of two things is going to happen. He either knows you're right, and he's going to have to do something about it, or he knows you're right, and he is going to escalate this thing beyond reproach.
Oh, yeah, at some point, you might get the officer who's going to slam you on the back of the car at some point.
So the point is, when
you're not cooperating.
if you're going with what I'm telling you, and they're probably going to arrest you anyways, and you don't give them any other evidence, number one is, if they're going to arrest you anyways, they're going to arrest you anyways. Better that they arrest you that way without all this other stuff you've given them that you're not going to be able to pass. From a lawyer's perspective, that's better, okay? Secondly, I could name 5 scenarios in the last couple of years where, you know, traffic interactions, one of which I was on the phone with the guy in the back of the police car where I was telling him, don't talk to... He's got his lawyer on the phone. He's talking to me on the phone. They let him go. It was like he bumped into someone. They wanted to test him. They thought he was been smoking cannabis sativa L of some kind. Nevertheless, these are important tips to keep in mind in the recreational era.
My point is just breathe. Don't let them intimidate you. Don't let them trick you. And if it's not the intimidation, you're going to get the nice guy factor. You know, bud, I just want to get you out of here. So the more you cooperate with me now, the sooner you're going to get out of here.
But you don't have...
It's just better for you.
You don't have
You're going
to
get
engage.
that. They're going to trick you.
You don't have to engage. And
Yes, you don't have to.
Be a broken record. Am I being detained or am I free to go?
Don't be a dick. Be polite.
Yeah. And if they're going to detain you, you will know it because you'll be sitting in the back of the police car with handcuffs on.
I think the instinct sometimes is to get nervous and to want to talk.
It's a nerve-wracking situation.
There you go. And this is the point I was going to make. And, you know, both myself and Alyssa McCormick, the other attorney at Komorn Law PLC, got certified in a two-day event for our standard field sobriety testing. And part of the instruction, which is which was not just the instruction of how the police officers are taught, but some psychology as to why this first day is so important, is that by using NHTSA, the National Highway Safety Traffic Commission, they exasperate.
They make police signs.
They make police signs, but they utilize a bunch of data that doesn't really exist of the number of crashes and causes of crashes and relationships to deaths and driving and alcohol and controlled substances. And then they beat this into them over a period of time all day, and then instill upon them the idea that there's carnage out there. There's danger everywhere. You're signing up to be a hero. These drivers are impaired.
Yes.
There's so much of it. You got to find it. We're going to give you the tools to get it. And it, like literally, it
It
seems
gets you ready for war.
getting you ready for war. That's why the traffic safety guys are serious, right?
Yeah.
Driving is dangerous.
It's a dangerous thing.
Very
Dangerous. But
It's even more dangerous when you get pulled over by the police.
But here's another thing that he said, which I think is also really important. And this is where you can have the upper hand if you're taking in tips to the listeners out there. Number one is, by definition, a traffic stop is a awkward circumstance. Number one, the police officer, despite his training or her training, doesn't know what they're getting themselves into, right?
No.
They want it to be comfortable, but they know in their heart of hearts, every time they pull a car over, anything can happen, right? So they're going to be nervous, and they want to get to the unnervous side as fast as possible.
People get weird when you start restricting their freedoms.
People get weird, right? You never know. Some people, you're right. There's just somebody that can just, right? So you got people that may have a warrant out that they're going to get extradited back to somewhere on a murder case. They're not sticking around. You got someone that's running on some traffic shit. They may not be sticking around.
Right.
All kinds of stuff. They may have a gun in the car. They're on a probation. Whatever. They got warrants. Anything. So it's awkward for the officer because they never know what they're getting themselves into, number one. And it's awkward for the driver.
Yeah.
Right? The more awkward it can escalate itself. So the point is that if you know, to some regard, it's equally as odd. I mean, there's training, and they've got a pattern of how they're going to talk and what they're going to do. You know what I mean? But
You want to know what's really awkward is when the police officer that's pulling you over is half your age, and you could be their father, and then they give you a ticket and a lecture.
That's very tough.
That's awkward. Not
Yeah.
that that's ever happened.
You know
to
what
me.
that lecture comes from? That lecture comes from piss poor initial training of that officer.
Well,
Because there shouldn't be a lecture. It should be, okay, here's your citation. Here's the number on the court that you call. If you got any questions, take care of it there.
I got a lecture. It was very informative.
That's it. There is no lecture. There shouldn't be a lecture.
That was a while ago.
It's piss poor policing with the
But
lecture.
it was awkward.
Just like the judge's lecture on the bench. I mean, I don't want to hear the damn lectures from the justice officials. What is the law? And what are you doing with the law? And what are you doing to me with that law? And are you staying within the law? And no, I don't need to hear your goddamn lecture.
well, I would say this. I think it's an interesting point you raised, Steve, because
Amen.
what we're talking about here, and I think there's like an objective view of what the social contract is for behavior. This could also be a Larry David episode, like, what rule? The unwritten rule, you're only allowed 1 scoop of ice cream. You can't take 10 scoops of tasters when you're in line at the ice cream parlor, some stuff like that. But I'm saying certainly a social contract about, people's behavior. Some people, there's a time where people if you were acting weird, they call the police on you because it was weird. Now that behavior is invited, maybe, you know what I mean? But I do think, Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, the training and experience that goes into building a police officer is literally to look at that social contract activity that's taking place of individuals and see it differently than everybody else.
Yes, because there's something that they're doing there that's not within the law. And it's up to you.
Well, they are
Figure it out.
critical of what the contract is between people, buildings and drugs and whatever. And they're also looking at the behavior that exists in our freedom, in a very critical way, which means like they're going to judge. That's why they think they can lecture someone for speeding. You know what I mean? Like, this is what's wrong with the world. You got people that are, they're doing this over here. You know what I mean? So, like, you can see that being. We need people to. I mean, how else? First of all, it would follow that if you're giving someone a ticket and that's your job, you give him a fucking lecture.
No, there is no lecture.
You give him a lecture because,
Let me tell you a funny story about the lecture. My first training officer that I had, and he was awful, so I'm not going to mention him by name. The guy wouldn't shut up. And he's telling me how to do a traffic stop, and he goes in and he goes into the lecture with the person. So I just, we as humans, we look to the ones who are training us and we copy. So then I get mine. It was an accident. And I go up and I have this woman a ticket, and he's a terrible training officer because I wrote the wrong woman a ticket on that accident and gave her a lecture because that's what he was showing me to do. And then you know what he did on my my DOR report at the end of that incident, that response to this accident with the ticket?
You said you lectured.
He told me that I shouldn't be lecturing her. So the officer who was training me to lecture people told me I shouldn't lecture. So that's the shit that goes on in police work and the training.
I was, I don't know. I've met troopers before that get very, like I've heard, they're.
I've had troopers, they get right in your ass. I mean, they're upset about it. And it's like, for a civil infraction, and that's the other.
No.
That's the other part to this. That the officers, they'll tell you, the traffic stop. That's the most dangerous, one of the most dangerous things the officer can. Why the hell are we doing it then? We're putting officers' lives on the line daily, multiple times for civil infractions violations. Most of which could be caught on camera now and mailed tickets to people. So why do we have the police out there involved in traffic enforcement anymore is beyond me, because it's really not required. And if it's so goddamn dangerous, and it can be, then why do we have them doing it? I would rather have the officer out patrolling my neighborhood as a security rover. Making sure my homes and cars aren't getting broken into, then I want them out on the streets making goddamn traffic stops. That's my rant for the day.
Let's see. I was going to say before we get to that part of it, though. There was something else. What were we talking about before that? How did we get? We were.
Yeah, I went way off.
No, really, that was a wicked web we weaved. It really was.
Oh yeah, I was getting this. I was drawing a correlation of that whole training process of what is, trained into. There's all this danger, right? That's
danger,
it.
yes.
Right. In the
Us against them.
No, well, the bad driver that an officer is trained to see as being outside of the social contract because it brings danger is bought into that already. You know what I mean? Like if you ever meet, I talked to cops outside of a conference room 1,000 times probably in the last 30 years. You know what I mean? Like about trying to get them to reduce a traffic ticket or something like that, And some of them don't care. Some of them are like, he's going to really hurt someone. I just cleaned up an accident. This guy's head, it's always something like that.
Giving you the lecture.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So that's kind of like, it drives that for these drug testing, and sobriety testing is kind of the principle that they're trying to prevent a disaster. But they've already bought into it being something that they can prevent.
Yeah. And you know what? I hate to hurt their feelings. They can't prevent a lot.
Well, no, but I'll tell you what. If people knew there were speed cameras that were going to catch them speeding, they wouldn't speed.
There'd be a lot less. And when I go back to my fallback is I drive 40 miles each way to work every day on the expressways in southeastern Michigan, metropolitan Detroit area. Do you think most people on my stretch of roadway, both ways, coming to and going home at night, are driving like assholes? Do you think there's all kinds of people just speeding and driving like, assholes that are just ramming into people and spinning out and cutting people off and doing this? No, most people are going, at the speed limit. If they're speeding, they're going maybe 10 over, and that's That's generally what the officers will allow out there on that expressway is they'll give you up to 10 over. So that's most people, and they're just wanting to get from point A to point B, work to home to work, to the store, whatever. Every now and then, though, you get the asshole that's speeding up the road and weaving in and out of traffic. You get that one every now and then, and a camera would probably pick him off nicely.
Yeah.
You
And,
know what they have here is on busy intersections and stuff. They'll take, they're community police or whatnot, but they look like cop cars. They'll take them and stick them over there, and just nobody's in there, but it's kind of like a decoy. And so when people see that, they naturally slow down, and there's just nobody in there. So, I mean, after a few times going past it, you kind of get the idea. But they move them around, and then sometimes there is somebody in there too. So you always kind of. So they do get a little tricky, but yeah, I mean, there's some crazy driving around here too. But I think that would be helpful if they did that, and also the cameras they use down here too. But my GPS tells me there's a camera. Does it tell you guys?
You don't even need that many people to man that system once you get the computers all running on it, Jim, with the AI. Man, that camera's taking the picture of that plate. The plate's running the thing.
Well, but
it's printing the
We all
ticket
did our
and then mail
10-year
it to the
challenge
person.
and updated our facial recognition.
Well, eventually, and probably not in a time so far away, cars are going to drive themselves. They're going to be autonomous.
There's that too.
And then what? How are the police going to pull you over?
They're going to use their police science to come up with their reasons.
Yeah.
And they're going to call you still weaving in the lane. Well, I got this. I'm on fully automation, officer. Yeah. Well, still need you to step out of the car.
Yep. I know what I saw.
I mean,
I know what
this bullshit's going to continue as automated as stuff gets until people start telling these police no.
Yeah.
Here's a question, though. There was a period of time where
to get broke in the process.
there was less policing for a period of time. Remember when that was taking place?
No.
I mean, during the pandemic, there was less policing.
Was there? I felt like during
there
the
was-
pandemic, it was more likely you were going to get pulled over. I guess
I think they weren't-
I worked in the early days of the pandemic, so
Right.
I remember seeing 696 just being deserted, and you would roll by a state cop every so often, and you would just expect that you were going to get pulled over because you were the only car on the road.
Okay.
Those
All
were
right.
good times.
So I kind of, they weren't the police were locked down. They weren't like patrolling as much. I felt they weren't doing like enforcing as much traffic and stuff. Do we disagree about that? I thought that there was.
I don't believe I saw less.
Does anyone have an opinion about that? I felt like
during the lockdown, you mean?
Yeah, the front phase of the lockdown, there was a lot of.
Yeah, they were. Sorry, my dog is on high alert right. I remember that they were having people call in issues, and as opposed to going out, and whereas before you'd call in and say, "Hey, my neighbor's bugging me. They're being too loud over there," and so in the past they would have sent somebody out there. Well, then they decided they were going to make phone calls and stuff instead. So it was more like
Is this like a therapy line?
Like a hands-off approach, COVID style policing.
They're gonna
That's what it was.
zoom the perpetrator. Excuse me, Mr. Criminal. I'm gonna need you to stop.
Let's talk about the zoom in the perpetrator. The zoom in, like Michael, you're in the Zoom court all the time.
Yes.
Do you still do Zoom courts?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't do it when there's a substantive day, where there's confrontation clause at issue or cross-examine a witness or something to that effect, and it really only applies to criminal, right, to confront. But it can be good in some ways because I can tell you the amount of years I have logged sitting around in court, waiting for my case to get called. I mean, it still happens. I sat here, and what I was describing is it kind of shows you the difference. I felt like I was a hostage for 3 or 4 hours. Like this happens. Like the case was called, got a notice for 11 o'clock. At 3 o'clock, 3:30, we were still on. It was supposed to be, and it was uncontested. I mean, that kind of stuff happens all the time, and you're there. Then you got to get in the car and drive back.
Yeah, at least you can hang out in your office.
I mean, listen, it was odd, and I never thought that it would, but it does, some stuff, I should have to drive 3 hours sometimes to get on the record to say, yes, no, okay, that date works, we'll see you then.
Yep.
You know what I mean? That just doesn't seem, and, it's, in a way, it kind of showed how stupid the courts have been operating all this time. Like they could have done this before that.
They want to get back to that old way.
Well, some of them do, some of them don't. I mean, the major courts in Detroit, I don't think we'll ever see them back there. I hope not.
What do you mean, full staff?
No, there's no Zoom. I mean, for shit like motions and those sorts of.
They have Zoom. They've got plenty of Zoom.
No, that's my point. Is that here in Metro Detroit, like the large courts here, they all do Zoom, and I don't think it's going anywhere. I think the judges like it that way. It makes
if they use it properly, they
Some
can
do.
probably zip through a doc, get a lot more done on their dockets than they can everything being in person and jamming a bunch of people on.
so much easier.
Here's a problem.
Disease infestation.
Here's a problem. What you have now is you've got a disparity among how the courts are utilizing it. Like there is genuinely, and has always been a default to what's preferred by the lawyer and the defendant. You know what I mean? Or in those situations. And if there was going to be a confrontational issue with a witness, they would, get you there in person.
Yep.
Most others, they let you do it by Zoom, and it makes sense. But if you really want to be there and you got to be there, they'll let you show up if you demand it. Because you have to ultimately waive being there in person.
Right.
But
there's a lot of times that
but some of the courts are not giving the discretion.
Yeah, see that
in an arbitrary way.
That's so
They may in some instances not. There was a story about a woman attorney that I know. I think she said her birthday. Who is from Wayne County, drove out to Ottawa County, place that I'm familiar with.
That story was in the news.
Story was in the news. In fact,
talking about I know which.
In fact, there's a little connection in some odd way. This particular judge used to be the prosecutor for that county.
Okay.
The judge that had the Max Lorenz case, Judge Poe, was one of the district court, was a bad guy. One of the circuit court was a good guy. Judge Poe's prosecutor was this person that's a judge now. She used to be a prosecutor. She's the one that was pushing the synthetic THC thing. It later got dismissed by the Judge Poe. And then we went on the hallway and she said, I could still charge him with possession of marijuana. I said something to the effect of like, yeah, if you want to be the biggest asshole in the world. Anyways, she got on the bench.
Yeah.
And
I bet she loves you.
This woman, attorney, was going through chemotherapy right now, asked if she could do Zoom. They told her no. She has 3 hours out there. She's sick on the way. She gets there. And she sees all these other people on Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
And they did some shit that they don't normally do. Like her client, I think was from Wayne County. And the judge tried to make an example of him in what would normally be, and this is something I was going to say before. Remember we were talking about the mental health issues and the ages and whatnot?
Yep.
I realized one of the reasons why I was vulnerable to accepting that is because of this. In Michigan, there's a law called the Youthful Trainee Act.
Yep.
If you're between the age of 17 to 21, charged as an adult, certain crimes,
It goes beyond 21, doesn't it?
It was to 21. Now it was with permission of the prosecutor up to 25. It's from 21 to 25. So what it suggests, though, is that it's understood that because of that age, because of that developmental phase that is different and slower in men at that age, whether that's the correlation to predisposition of whatever, and that is why this law got passed. Senator Holmes from Detroit is the one that introduced it. In Detroit and Wayne County, they call it the Holmes Youthful Training Act. Everywhere else, they call it YTA, Youthful Training Act. And it allows someone to plead guilty. You can have more than one. Yeah. Plead guilty to crimes that the court will take under advisement, and upon successful completion, dismiss it off your record. And it is truly non-conviction that no one else would find out about. It is more like, a lot of the other under advisements, 7411, the domestic violence one, 771, they'll show that there was a delay. This one is, intended to bury it.
But you got to get through probation.
So that the mistakes you make as a youth do not forever, ruin you. And so I mentioned that only because I thought it had some relevance to the conversation about just that age group and stupid decisions being made in that age group. So I have a deference to no one's thinking clearly at that age anyways. You know what I mean? And it's not just me. There's legislation was based upon data that was presented. I think even, all the insurance companies charge, correct me if I'm wrong, Steve.
They do.
They charge more for men in the age group than women. Is that right? And, from 21 to 25, I think is, and they do it based upon statistics of crashes and, right? I mean, am I right about that?
Yeah.
So
the actuaries put in those
plugs
in those equations.
So I'm inserting that into that conversation about that age group and just it being, it's illogical.
They're out of control.
It's like everything's it's all chemicals.
Floods of testosterone jamming through their system, and then you add alcohol to that.
Right, which is why I was saying that I'm vulnerable to that argument. I'm not agreeing to it.
Wrong side of a taser, Steve.
The other so the point of back to Ottawa, and the judge and my lawyer friend and what she had to go through was that the kid was 18, 19 years old, should have gotten HIDA. The probation department was recommending HIDA. The judge locked him up and didn't give him HIDA. Something like that. Just totally, And there's no, and I think she even sentenced him because he didn't, she didn't believe when he gave a statement to the police. Some judges do weird stuff like that.
She didn't believe. What does she have? Right. Does she have proof of her non-belief, or just because she's a judge, we should just accept her non-belief because you're a judge? I mean, is that the rationale we're going with these days? Because judges are people too.
Yeah, they are.
And a lot of them are terrible, terrible people.
There's a judge in Jackson who, for some reason, I don't know how this happened, but I was watching, my YouTube thing, whatever, and ended up watching this, the guy had a whole thing about all the Moors that show up in court, that they're, not a citizen or whatever, they don't fucking schmear. You know what I mean?
Well, the sovereigns?
Sovereign citizen shit. So the guy's got a bunch of that game. So one of them's in front of this judge in Jackson and stuff, and he's just going at him. He's having fun with them. You know what I mean? And the guy's trying to make proclamations and good sovereign citizen jurisprudence. The guy's going. Anyways, this same judge, he can remain nameless, just got slapped by the Court of Appeals after guy was convicted at trial of a crime that was not the original charge. It was maybe first degree to second degree or second degree to manslaughter. And he sentenced him with a lot of commentary that he thought he did the other crime, okay? Went up to the Court of Appeals. They reversed it, sent it back. He did the same thing. Same thing, ignored the Court of Appeals. Went back to them. They disqualified it. No one asked him to be disqualified. The Court of Appeals did it sua sponte. And then in the dicta, they said something to the effect of, this judge should get into a different business. You know what I mean? Because it's just
look
not.
How all of the energy and the time and the effort it took to get that done for a man who did something totally wrong twice and disregarded his higher power. That's ridiculous. I mean, that's what you got to do to take that guy out? That's insane. I mean, and that probably was a 2 to 3 year ordeal.
Oh, yeah.
At least. To get that judge to have some responsibility for the stupid shit he did and said on the bench 3 to 4 years prior. But that's the process to deal with that judge. You're insulated. You can do whatever the hell you want.
You want to know the silver lining to all this? As much as we can proclaim how broken the system is, as much as we could say that a real deep pandemic of black robe disease exists, you know, amongst judges, and the cog that they play in the wheel of just churning evil and injustice out, still got the right to a jury trial. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's like the truest form of it's the truest form of democracy.
But
yes, you don't get anything from
I
it.
have seen you get handcuffed and arms tied behind your feet tied, your arms tied behind your back, and set into a jury trial by a judge. Has done that to you before. You probably know what case I'm talking about too. Over on the old west side. And that judge handicapped you on that case as much as an attorney could be handicapped on a case by a judge.
Yeah, I did have to prove
At a
that
jury trial.
we were innocent. I think that's the way it went down.
I mean, it was a shit show, and that judge got away with it. And there was a lot of other issues going on there too, but still, he went out of his way to handcuff you, double lock, placed on your knees, and your ankles zip tied to each other. And I think he may have blindfolded you and put a plug in one ear as well and said, "Here you go."
You know what's interesting about that? That there's no question that you know, like if that happens, I guess nobody should have to go through that. But you go to trial, you give it your automatic right to appeal, and all of that is going to be examined. Remember, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
That whole thing was not perfected by those people that were responsible for that later on. You know what I mean? But I will say that you know, the verdict commands the type of sentence that is serious, that kind of case. Like it was hamstrung, virtually no chance of winning. The jury came back as it was, which would call for a deep, hard, dark, ruining of life, dangerous actually, probably, type of sentence. And the judge did the opposite. You know what I mean? Like he almost kind of created his own, like, I'm going to not let you win. I'm going to make sure she's convicted. And I'm going to give you a baby sentence that's painful, but not, you know what I mean?
I guarantee he regretted that.
He did?
Yeah.
You know, listen, it would have been a different story if we had an appeal. You know, if it had all been. I can't. But I don't know. You know, I think we're talking about judges that actually. It's kind of like, listen. It's kind of like this. It kind of goes back to the same thing. Why is the judge giving a lecture? Why is a cop giving a lecture? I'll tell you why. Because everyone wants to have meaning.
Yeah.
Right.
You are right.
They're not just there to bark and do this. Otherwise, why are they there? They get a robot for that, they would say. I'm going to try to have an impact. I'm going to expect this out of them. I'm going to hold everyone accountable. I'm going to talk to them and tell them, and because I know what it is, and I'm here on the bench, and I'm perfect. Kind of shit. You know what I mean? Now,
we just want you calling the balls and strikes, Judge, and explaining your rationale. That's it.
Understand that. Listen, I'll tell you something. I never
in the law.
I'll tell you something. There was a time in my life where I didn't realize this, but there was, you know, like. There are certain courts that have multiple judges, right? You got 3, 5, 10, 15 judges, not that many. But some of them work harder than others. Some of them are busier on their docket, right? And some of them don't work as colleagues. They may even disagree about politics. They may have had family disputes because they're all, you know, gunning for power or whatever. And the way the state really sets up and schedules a lot of the judges is that they're literally, if you think about it, there's nothing special about them. They're like pawns. They're pawns. And for all purposes, much of what they do is set up and scheduled in such a way to make their life as easy as possible, right? When you're in a jurisdiction and your case, that over the years we know that it's X amount of domestic violence, X amount of drunk driving, X amount of traffic, licensing shit. Then they've got a probation department that's going to handle all that. And it's not going to be science. Like, you got that, it comes in, we do that. It's done. So before you even get there, they know where you're going. You know what I'm saying? And they build this into the situation and provide this fallacy, this net that they're there to use these things to improve people, right? And through this court system, we're going to help them. And it turns them into popularity contests of social workers, of an unsuccessful, unstatistically, proven success rate of nonsense, which later actually turned out to be the highlights or the lowlights of the trial court funding program and the jail overcrowding program. It is these principles and logic of them trying to help them, keeping people on probation for 2 years, putting them in debt, locking them up in the district court, and using every single tool to punish and things like that. That was the problem. Right. Like, these rules exist, but use your discretion in the name of humanity. Give someone a warning. Don't arrest someone on a no ops on person. Let them go home and get their license and bring it to, whatever, that kind of stuff, right? Someone shouldn't lose their job for, because they're locked up and they can't get a bond on a, and some non-payment in some other jurisdiction.
Been for a long time.
Forever.
I mean, when I got into police work, I could not believe the shit that we were locking people up for and going to court for. I was like, really?
Yeah.
This is what we do, huh? Right. Guess I'm in it.
I mean, we were listen, Steve, we sat
in too deep now, Steve.
We sat through that call, and it was in Ypsilanti District Court. Doesn't matter, right? It started at 9 o'clock. At 11 o'clock when we got on, they had not even gotten halfway through the 9 to 10 call, right? At 3:30, our case got called. That is a lot of business. Like, where did all that come from? Like, there's if you know what I mean, it's a big city, but there's bigger cities. Why do they have so much more substantial cases? I mean, there's a case every 7 minutes, probably. You know what I mean? Just churning them along.
Churning them out.
Machine. Next.
I guarantee most of it is all just the level misdemeanor bullshit.
It is. It's like neighborhood trespassing, drunk driving, beating up a neighbor. Beating
up the neighbor.
I mean, it's not shit you really want going on in your neighborhood. I don't know.
It's not any. Listen, it's the same nonsense. Like, because most of those times the cop shows up and he talks to two people and he says, "Okay, I'm going to believe this one," right? And they write the report, right?
Yeah.
And if they gone the other way, I'd be representing the other guy, and the person would have been taking the report. You know what I mean? It's literally a lot of that stuff's like that. Those are I don't know. Well, all right, so do we get enough? Jamie, what happened?
You got to shut it down.
Let's shut it down. It's way too late. What are we talking about? Okay.
Yeah.
And Dan has informed me that
what?
There's been cyberbullying.
Where?
Yes.
Some more of that?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
That's what Dan said.
Getting kicked off again, huh?
So, please, no cyberbullying.
Where's that taking place?
What were we cyberbullying about
Us?
this time?
Us? Or do we get shut down on Facebook?
No, I don't think we got shut down. I think we got a...
Did we get a stern...
We got a penalty flag.
What kind of bullying?
I'm telling you, there was some cyberbullying. I think there might have been a little hate speech.
Yep.
Really?
Yep.
That's
And
what
we
they
were
were saying.
Violation of community standards type of
We're
thing.
getting violated.
Are you using the word marijuana?
I don't know. I think
Not sure.
maybe
They don't really take
it is.
the time
It is
to
a
explain it
racist
to you.
term, so that makes sense.
All right. Last words from everyone. Amanda? Any final words or thoughts?
Looking forward to the Cannajam coming up.
Oh yeah.
And if someone wants to buy the Planet Green Trees NFT, who should they contact?
They should contact me.
Okay. All right. All right, is Jamie still here? Did he hang out? Did he abandon?
He's a little bit. There he is. He's
Jamie, any final thoughts? I'm sorry we kind of rambled down there at the end. I don't know what happened.
All right, man. Good stuff.
You're fun at least a little bit?
All good. Yep, all good.
What are you doing? You printing some guitar?
Grow Green's got an expo, their winter expo coming up on Saturday. I'll be there with Great Lakes Expungement Network Saturday.
Oh, I didn't say this. You know, one of the, and I don't know what direct relation this has to Great Lakes Expungement, but I noticed that, as you may know, Komorn Law does we do a lot of expungements for folks and
A lot of expungements.
getting a lot of clearing people's lives. I spotted to my client the other day that he was like a newborn baby, like a tabula rosa, like all that other shit's gone. You know, it's kind of it was joyous. And we're doing some for some other cases that we've had. But one of the things that is causing a huge delay is that one of the requisite things that's needed to get your expungement is you have to get a letter from the Attorney General's office which says essentially, yes, the defendant is eligible and there's no reason why, you know, and they're eligible, and if the court has a hearing and they demonstrate the need, you know, the public, why it's in the public welfare to grant this, then the court shall do that, something to that effect. So, but the issue is getting the letter. So they are 6 months behind.
Oh, boy.
And they're making excuses that are similar to like, well, you know, we're getting all these certifications, we can't get the cards out in time. That's what it kind of sounded like. You know what I mean? And you would think that if this is the champion cause that our AG is behind, our governor's behind, that they would have put some extra dollars into that particular department.
Maybe.
You know what I mean? Like when you think about it in just a processing, like all these people, if they can do it themselves, they don't need a lawyer.
Right.
They don't even know, you know, what you know.
Well,
even
that's coming up, right?
but people are still doing it themselves. Trust me.
No, I get it, but
You download a packet, the AG. Listen,
December, it's going to become automated.
some are automatic,
Yeah.
but I'm saying to you that there's a lot of different ways that people can get the information, do it if they want to.
Yeah.
Some of it's a little. There's some.
Or you can call Komorn Law.
You can call Komorn. Some of it's complicated.
It's a pain in the ass.
Some of it's complicated. I tell you, we had a guy who had been, like he had the wrong conviction, the wrong court or something, right? We had to go,
Yeah.
like they entered the wrong, I don't know, we had to go fix that. You know, but it's, but my point was that if they're trying to streamline it, and the whole idea is to get people back into the workforce, and we're going to do this by amendments of the expungement law, setting aside convictions, making it more available to remove these, to get people back in the workforce. We're going to amend the law so that occupational license could be gotten without moral judgment and character. And even if you want to get an MMA or a recreational license, you can get that too and not have your character judged because of these past...
Transgressions.
Right. And... but in order to get these things to really get behind this, the process has to work.
Yes.
And if we're going to have an abundance of things coming in, you can't work at the same staffing. You got to step it up. If the normal number of requests for these letters are 10, and now statewide, how many convictions are in play now?
Plus, I mean, if they knew that was going to happen, you'd think that there would be a way to just automate that process. Because really, what's happening, I assume, the process is that you send the AG a letter. Someone opens that letter and they're like, "Oh, I gotta look up so and so and see if they're eligible for this expungement." So
Correct.
They do that, and they
Correct.
look up and they're like, "Oh, yep, they're good," and then they write their letter, and they sign it. Well, it would make sense to me that you would just give people like a portal into this database where you could submit a request online that, you know, there could be some wackiness in the background that's doing the lookup, seeing if they're eligible, and then spitting out a result with a confirmation code, and then you just...
In real time, you're saying?
Yeah, why not?
I mean, the scenario you described of how it occurred is probably exactly that. The question is, within the number of hours that they're going to be there getting this, either opening the letter, reading it, looking it up, and then responding, or opening it in the portal and acting in real time, still is going to be conflicted with a huge number.
Oh, no, I'm
stack.
not talking about the resources interacting with the portal. I'm talking about the computer doing everything. Like the
computer looks up to see if it's eligible. That's, you know.
That would seem to me to make sense, unless maybe there's something these people are doing as far as the background
I don't know,
investigation that can't be.
What do you think about that? Because listen, it's a slippery slope, I think, because I don't know. There's probably a way to, because what they're doing essentially
is going to be better at it than any human.
I know, but what they're doing is there's a background check of some kind that's run on the name and iChat or Lean or whatever,
Yeah,
and then they have to look at and see if it fits into the category, right?
They're all those offenses. They all have codes associated with them. I forgot what they're called.
Not all of them.
Yeah, most of them. And the ones that don't should have a code associated with them.
They do if it's in the Lean. They do.
And iChat will print them right off for you. So why wouldn't you just integrate with iChat and the computer does the look?
They have the Lean.
Justice system that could do it. That and the traffic enforcement by camera.
That's right. Boom. Free up some people. Get them
you know
under
what
control.
else? Keep the traffic ticket prices low, like $25 and less, and the people get their photo ticket in the mail. They're going to just send in a check for $25 and be done with it.
Mm-hmm.
No points. Simplify things. Have punishment for things, fines for things, but let's be reasonable, not be so ridiculous. Automate this traffic thing, and then, hey, the cops don't need to be in danger anymore.
Hot damn.
I'm going to call it the bill for the cops.
All right. All right, Jamie had his last words. He's going to be get your last words, Amanda. Jim, Steve, any final thoughts?
I just gave you mine.
All right, good. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's,
I gave mine.
All right, let's
talk
do
it out.
Let's get out of here.
All right. Be safe, everyone. We'll talk to you next time.
The Planet Green Trees Show.
When you're charged with a crime, you need a real attorney. And here's just a few reasons why. The police, the courts, the labs, the drug tests, probation, the judges, the jails, the prisons, and the entire system is just one big machine. They have one objective. Take your freedom, take your possessions, take your money, take your children, control your life, and destroy your future. You only get one chance to hire the right attorney. One that will stay in your corner. One that will fight for your rights. One that will fight for your freedom. Choose an attorney that's experienced in fighting the justice machine. Attorney Michael Komorn. Knock out victories one case at a time. Komorn Law. Google it. komornlaw.com.
Join the Michigan Medical Marijuana Association today. MichiganMedicalMarijuana.org. The MMMA is focused on the well-being and safety of medical marijuana patients. The MMMA site provides the most comprehensive and up-to-date news on legal issues, politics, research, cultivation, as well as the various strange products and methods of cannabis use. Come join the discussion with the most knowledgeable and passionate advocates in Michigan today. MichiganMedicalMarijuana.org. Join the Michigan Medical Marijuana Association today. MichiganMedicalMarijuana.org. The MMMA is focused on the well-being and safety of medical marijuana patients. The MMMA site provides the most comprehensive and up-to-date news on legal issues, politics, research, cultivation, as well as the various strange products and methods of cannabis use. Come join the discussion with the most knowledgeable and passionate advocates in Michigan today. MichiganMedicalMarijuana.org.
Hi, I'm attorney Michael Komorn of Komorn Law PLC, and you are watching Planet Green Trees.
The Planet Green Trees Show.
Join the Michigan Medical Marijuana Association today, michiganmedicalmarijuana.org. The MMMA is focused on the well-being and safety of medical marijuana patients. The MMMA site provides the most comprehensive and up-to-date news on legal issues, politics, research, cultivation, as well as the various strains, products, and methods of cannabis use. Come join the discussion with the most knowledgeable and passionate advocates in Michigan today, michiganmedicalmarijuana.org.
Before you plead, call me, attorney Michael Komorn.
An important and historical farm crop in American agriculture is returned after having been classified as a controlled substance and illegal. On December 20th, 2018, the President signed the Farm Bill, also known as the Agriculture Improvement Act of 2018, into law. The signing of the act was great news for the hemp industry, which amended the definition of marijuana in the Federal Controlled Substances Act. Hemp is now defined as the plant, Cannabis sativa L, and any part of the plant, growing or not, with less than 0.3% THC concentration on a dry basis. The plant itself is no longer a controlled substance. Hemp is one of the most versatile plants on earth. From clothing, fiber, paper, building materials, hempcrete, biofuels, CBD, and medical uses, it has been a part of America's industry for over 200 years. Even the United States Constitution was drafted on hemp paper. The time is now. If you're thinking of getting in the farming or processing of hemp, contact our global experts, legal, and consultation teams to make sure that you're on the right road when you venture into the new hemp industrial revolution. Michigan Hemp Industries has been a leader and advocate for the return of the hemp industry, so come be a part of the new revolution in agriculture in Michigan.
I am Earl from G3 Cannabis Therapy Network, and you are watching Planet Green Trees, the original and #1 podcast in Michigan for all things cannabis and legal news.